First of all, I always thought that breast cancer was a white woman's disease. I didn't know that black women got breast cancer, and that was mainly because all the promotions featured white women. So I just thought, oh, black women don't get this. And then, lo and behold, I was diagnosed with stage 3 advanced breast cancer. I thought after that, I finished with the IV and the chemo, that I was going to go home. I didn't know I had to take additional over-the-counter, not over-the-counter, but prescription drugs. And I went, and it was quite expensive. And I thought to myself, okay, what do poor people do? How do women that look like me, that is less fortunate than I am, how do they make it? How do they find the money to pay for this prescription, take care of their families, cover all their finances? That must be so difficult for them. And then I was at home one morning feeling, terrible after chemotherapy treatment. Couldn't get off the bed. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want any other woman that looks like me to have to go through this alone. So when I get better, I'm going to do something about this. That started the journey of me and the Olive Branch of Hope.
The Olive Branch of Hope's office is situated on Indigenous land. This is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The Olive Branch of Hope gratefully acknowledges these Indigenous nations for their guardianship of this land. The Olive Branch of Hope also recognizes stolen people from across the world who have inhabited this land by force. Slavery prior to and including the transatlantic slave trade continuing through modern-day human trafficking have brought Indigenous people from across the globe to care for this land. We acknowledge the truth of our Canadian history and commit ourselves to reconciliation, knowledge, and careful intention. I invite you to take a moment of silence. Feel free to use this moment for prayer, memory of a loved one, or to set an intention for your engagement on this space. Thank you for holding this moment of silence with me.
Hello, good evening. Hey, sister, thank you for joining us in our conversation today as we continue with our 30 Days of HERstory campaign in support of the Olive Branch of Hope. So before we jump in, I just want to share with you that we are here to let you and everyone know about the amazing work done by this organization. The Olive Branch of Hope was started over 20 years ago and has been holding a sacred space for women of African ancestry as they journey through cancer treatment and thrive through life afterwards. Good evening, everybody. I am Rashida Skeet, owner and leader of the Virtual Assistant. And tonight we get to chat with Tehya, an educator and content creator. Hey there. How are you?
I am good. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a little bit nervous because
don't be nervous. It's just a chat with me. You're fine.
Thanks. Usually I can record my things and then edit out all of the ums and likes and
the ums and the pauses.
Exactly.
Same. No. All right. So let's get started. So Tehya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Tehya Nakamuro. I am an educator and history content creator. I have been a teacher for about 7 years. And actually this week on Friday, I stepped away from the classroom for a while. Yeah, it was my first, my last day of teaching in the 4th grade.
Okay.
And I was an emotional week, but it was great. I also create history content on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and a
Mm-hmm.
podcast and other educational resources. And as for my personal life, I live in Japan.
Wow.
My Yeah, I've lived in Japan for about 7 years. I
Nice.
was originally just going to be here for 2, and then I fell in love with Japan and stayed for a little bit longer and just kept telling myself, one more year,
Just
and
a
then I'll
little
go
bit
home.
more. Just a little bit
Exactly.
more.
And then, uh, 3 years ago, I met my no, 4 years ago, ooh, I met my husband.
Okay.
We got married. He's a Japanese citizen. That's why I have a Japanese last name, and I'll
Nice.
be here for the foreseeable future now.
Fantastic. And I can understand why you would want to, as some person who seems to be so pushed by history and the
Yes.
background knowledge of our world. Japan is so rich in that. So I could understand why you would want to continue staying there. I can get that. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here, Taya. Thank you so much. So,
Thank you for
our
having
next
me.
question is, in your opinion, what is the importance of vision?
So the importance of vision. So first of all, I think my idea of what vision is a little bit different than the traditional definition of vision. So for me, vision is access to information. So
Yes.
access to the past, access to educational materials, access to stories that reflect your own experiences and stories that show you a window into other people's experiences. So
Mhm.
for me, vision is important in knowing where we are right now, where we have been in the past, and where we could possibly want to go in the future.
Nice. Do you think though that there is enough access to those things that can aid with us developing our vision?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not even close. So first of all, if you take a look at American curriculum from
Mhm.
elementary school to high school,
Mhm.
24%, less than 24%
Mhm.
of the history curriculum in American schools covers women's history. And of that 24%, I'm sure you can guess how much of it covers Black, Indigenous, Mexican, any other person of color's history. It's a
Okay.
teeny, teeny, tiny percentage. So, I
Right.
don't think we have enough access in terms of the information that's available, and I don't think that we have access in terms of things being financially available to people because education is expensive.
Mhm. Okay. So, has there ever been a time where you felt as though your voice was diminished or silenced?
For sure. My voice and the voice of other historians, women who are working in the field of history and archaeology are
Mm.
silenced all of the time. If you
Mhm.
look at who the quote unquote top historians are,
Mhm.
they're
Real.
white men.
Mhm.
And that is the people who are, or those are the people who are respected in the
Right.
history community. I
Mhm.
myself, as a history creator, have had to struggle to get my content out there because it's not as readily accepted as a man talking about like World War II history. That
Mhm.
content is pushed more than if I were to talk about the Dahomey Amazon warriors, or if I were to talk about any West African queen, or if I were to talk about Korean empresses throughout history. That information is not pushed as much as other forms of history are. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
So knowing that it's such a male-dominated space,
Mm-hmm.
why did you choose to take up space there as a female?
So mostly because I'm just a stubborn person. My mom was a women's history major in
Okay.
university,
Mm-hmm.
and she focused a lot on sorry, let me just close this.
No
You
problem.
can see my husband right there. Rain, can you move over there a little bit? Sorry.
No problem.
So she was a women's history major in university and
Mm-hmm.
always taught me about things that I wasn't learning about in school. And
Right.
then when the pandemic hit in 2019, I had time to sit and think about what was really important to me. And for
Right.
me as an educator, I saw this kind of vacuum where nobody was talking about real world history.
Mm-hmm.
When you search world history on Google, it comes up with Greek history or European history or
Right.
all of those things that are technically they are world history, but
They
that
are,
is
but it's not the only thing.
exactly. I
It's not
saw
the only thing.
such a lack of information and people talking about literally anything other than American and European history. So I thought to myself, I could do this. I could tell people's
Mm-hmm.
stories. I could invite other people to tell their stories. And so I just did it.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Sometimes taking up space can be a little intimidating, especially
for
if
sure.
you feel like if your voice needs to be heard because of how important the
Yeah.
message is that you're trying to get out there. But just
Yes.
because of your gender, you aren't taken as seriously as your counterparts. So I feel
For
like
sure.
you making the stand in something that is so important, such as women's history or history alone, other than what the narrative
Mm,
is as being told, is such a brave step to take.
thank
I
you.
don't think we take history serious enough. I love history, absolutely love it.
Yes.
And it is something that I feel could help to carve every single one of our journeys because we get to understand where we come from and who we are a part of, you know? So that
Yes.
brings me to my next question. How
Yes.
does the idea of writing your own version of your own story and taking control of the narrative make you feel?
Oh my gosh. I feel both parts empowered and like really upset at the same time because because when I research these stories or when I hear the stories of other people who I bring onto my podcast, I am so excited to hear these stories and then I get really upset because I question why as a, a 30-year-old woman now, I'm just now hearing these
Hearing.
stories for the first time.
Mhm.
Why?
Why?
Why did no one tell me that the most successful pirate in the history of the world was a Chinese woman in the 1700s? Right?
I didn't
Did
know
you know
that.
that? Exactly.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Exactly. And there's so many stories like this that
Mm.
I I get goosebumps just talking about them and then just simultaneously furious at the same time.
How long have you been podcasting about it and how's that been going?
I've been podcasting oh gosh, this is my 3rd year of
Mhm.
podcasting.
Mhm.
April 1st will be my 3rd year of
Okay.
3rd? Yes, 3rd or 4th year. Yeah, 3rd year of podcasting.
Okay.
And it's been so fun,
Mm.
and really hard, and eye-opening and humbling all at the same time. Um, as a little bit of behind the scenes of being a podcaster, my episodes are only between 20 and 30 minutes long, but I
Nice.
spend 2 weeks researching,
And researching. Yep.
planning,
Mm-hmm.
researching, writing scripts, making
Yep.
content, all for 30 minutes. And you just sit there. This is my exact setup where I do my podcasting.
Right.
So I talked, I have a plant on my desk that I talk to so that I don't feel as crazy just speaking into the void. So
Does plant have a name?
No, the plant doesn't have a name, and I feel really bad that it doesn't have
You
a
should name
name.
the
We
plant.
need to
You
name
should
it.
name the
Yeah,
plant.
I should.
You should
Because
name the
this
plant.
plant has gotten me through 3 years of
I
sitting at my
feel it. The
desk by
plant deserves
myself.
a name. Yes,
It
especially
does.
having such an important role of getting you through, of not feeling that you're absolutely crazy. The plant should have a name.
I agree
So
with
you
you.
march in all these different roles. You play. You're doing an amazing thing with spreading the information about real history and what we really need to understand, the things that are not talked about. So, what
Yeah.
is the imagery in your mind when you hear the term victory?
When I hear the term victory, I immediately think of the statue. It's called the Winged Victory of Samothrace. It is a giant statue in the Louvre Museum, and
Okay.
it's a woman in a robe, and she has these giant wings, no arms and no head, and nobody knows who made it, nobody knows why they made it, and it's just a complete mystery as to how this giant, gorgeous statue came to be. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it doesn't have a face, to me, represents all of the women throughout history who don't have a voice, who haven't had a voice, who continue to struggle and fight to have their voice heard. So to me, victory, the image of victory, is that statue.
Mm. Interesting. So no face, no hands. No one know where it comes from. You mentioned
Yeah.
the year. How do you have an age as to how any kind of estimation as to how old it is?
Um, I would I cannot remember exactly, but it is definitely over 1,000 years old for sure.
Wow. And I mean,
Yes.
there's so many things that we never know. I've never heard of a headless, armless wing statue. I've never
Yeah.
heard of that. And the female Chinese pirate, I've never heard of that. The narrative, as you said, is always spewed as male. Anything male
Yes.
dominant is what we are always taught is the history that we need to recall and understand and know. And there's so much more to it. So much
There's
more
so much
to
more.
history
Yeah.
and so tell us a little bit more. Where can we find your podcast? Where can we get your information? And I really did enjoy the collab you did with Nadia on the
Oh,
name.
thank
Um,
you.
any interesting historical names that you want to share with us that we should go ahead and remember going forward from today?
Oh my gosh, there are so many.
Give us one.
So, I would like to, mm, I think the woman that Nadia and I covered, Ndumbat,
Yes.
I would really like people to go and do their own research on her, listen to the
Right.
episode, with me and Nadia, because it tells the story of an amazing West African queen, a matrilineage West African queen. So she inherited the throne from her mother, who inherited the throne from her mother, and so on and so forth. And
Mhm.
these women worked with their male counterparts to rule together.
Mm.
And we just, when Nadia and I were
There's
looking, no information,
none.
no information. There was two books. There were two books that we found. One was a self-published book on Amazon that I couldn't get access to because it was region locked. And then the other one I also I got access to, but it was a really short book, also self-published. And
That's it?
That's it. That's it. There were articles in French that Nadia so graciously looked up because she speaks French.
Yes.
And there were some articles that I found and I had to translate. And it was like pulling teeth to find information about Nzumbat and her sister and her mother and her whole tribe, the Wallo tribe in general. And to say tribe is actually really misleading. It was an empire. It was a whole empire.
Really?
Yes, yes.
I've never heard of any of this.
Right?
I need to go into my research as well.
So Nzumbat, please, please, please go look at Nzumbat, the kingdom of Wallo, sometimes called Wolof, and do please look into that because it's so important, and getting more eyes on a topic will let the internet know that this is an important topic and it needs to be shown to more people.
Fantastic. Tehya, thank you so much for joining us, for being here, for sharing your light on vision and voice and victory. It was a pleasure interviewing you, pleasure getting to meet you. I definitely will go and learn more following your page and listening to your podcast and letting myself also get more information about history and where we come from and where we can go. In closing, if no one has any questions, I'll just go on and say I would like to thank our guest for joining us, as I mentioned, and sharing about her journey. Please remember to visit www.heysisterherstory.ca to purchase any of the co-branded items that you see, because Her Story is giving extra from these products to the Olive Branch of Hope. Feel free to donate instead on the website as well. And all funds raised are dedicated to purchasing specialized medical devices for Black women living with lymphedema after breast cancer treatments. So, ladies, thank you so much again for being here, for joining us. Tehya, it was a pleasure meeting you. I'm going to continue to look out for your content. And thank you so much for making sure that you place a space for females, for the history that no one really hears. Thank you so much for charting a path for that.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today. It was so lovely to get a chance to talk to you, and I hope we can talk more soon. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
First of all, I always thought that breast cancer was a white woman's disease. I didn't know that Black women got breast cancer, and that was mainly because all the promotions featured white women. So I just thought, oh, Black women don't get this. And then lo and behold, I was diagnosed with stage 3 advanced breast cancer. I thought after that I finished with the IV and the chemo that I was going to go home. I didn't know I had to take additional prescription drugs. And I went, and it was quite expensive. And I thought to myself, okay, what do poor people do? How do women that look like me, that is less fortunate than I am, how do they make it? How do they find the money to pay for this prescription, take care of their families, cover all their finances? That must be so difficult for them. And then I was at home one morning feeling, terrible after chemotherapy treatment. Couldn't get off the bed. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want any other woman that looks like me to have to go through this alone. So when I get better, I'm going to do something about this. That started the journey of me and the Olive Branch of Hope.